Hey guys, welcome back. It's Josh with the Financial Advisor Car Guy. This week we're going to go back in time and I'm going to tell you about the very first new to me car that I purchased way back when. So I want you to imagine with me 2003, and I'm a young guy and I'm still driving my very first car, which is a 1983 Chevy S10 Blazer. And that car had been my pride and joy, or that SUV had been my pride and joy. I had spent way too much money on this thing. I had had it repainted, I lowered it, I put a banging sound system in it, you name it. My parents had actually put a brand new engine in it when we bought it. That's a whole nother story, maybe for another time, but basically the engine blew up. We were moving from California to Oregon, the engine blew up on that trip. We had to end up towing it the rest of the way. And so when we got here, my parents put a brand new engine. My dad had a new engine put into my S10 Blazer. And then it was my first car for a bunch of years, and it was a great rig. Really enjoyed it, but it got to a point where it was starting to become unreliable. Things were breaking, things were needing upkeep, maintenance, and it was nickel and diming me. And I'm just a young guy with a minimum wage job or whatever it was at the time. I don't recall exactly, but it made sense for me to look at something a little bit newer that had a warranty and whatever else. So 2003, I went and bought a 2002 model year Mitsubishi Lancer. Now I'm going to start with this piece of the story. So I traveled about 2.5 hours to a dealership. It was the closest one that had any Mitsubishi Lancers in stock. It was a Mitsubishi dealer and one of the last in the state of Oregon, I believe. I'm not sure now what the status of Mitsubishi is in general, but at the time, I don't think there were more than a couple of dealerships in the state. And so I drive to this dealership and they kind of do a bait and switch on me. They see a young guy, early 20s, not really having much life experience when it comes to auto negotiations. I literally had one car prior to that. And so when I was browsing, if you guys remember 2002-03, the internet was still relatively new. It was still relatively primitive, maybe is a good way to say it. And so I had found their dealership online. They had some inventory online, but obviously, I don't know, even digital cameras weren't very good back then and all those things. And so they posted pictures of a couple different Mitsubishi Lancers, but basically said, come into the, call us or come into the dealership to see our full inventory. So I call. I said, hey, Joe, whatever his name was, I live 2.5 hours away. I'd like to come look at this car. Can you tell me what it is that you have? What colors do you have in stock? Whatever, what trim levels and stuff. So great. Yeah, Josh, we've got this 2002, it was called Thunder Gray. It was a dark gray metallic color. We have a 2002 Thunder Gray Lancer ES or whatever it was, the base model essentially. And but it had 13,000 miles. I said, awesome. Okay, what are you asking for it? $13,000. Cool. I mean, looking at it back today, 13 grand for a car that's 1 year old with 13,000 miles on it, it's unheard of. You cannot find a car that's 1 year old for that price today. I don't know what the equivalent is. I'm not going to do the math. I'm not going to pretend to know. But my guess would be that would be like finding a car that's a year old that's like, $20,000 to $25,000. Okay, so 13 grand, fine. Well, I get to the dealership and lo and behold, this is a 2002 model year Thunder Gray. They had a 2003 car. So my wife was with me on that trip. Now we weren't married yet, but she rode with me because I wasn't sure. I think I needed a ride as part of it. She drove me there. I was gonna say, I thought maybe we were gonna trade something in, but now that I'm thinking about it, we weren't going to trade anything in. She drove me there and, essentially we were going to caravan back. And so I'm in there talking to the sales guy and he's talking up the car and I take it for a test drive and all this stuff. Well, all the while she's walking around outside looking at all the cars and she found a 2003 model year that was like 13.5. It was like very little money more. And she tells me this, but I don't know, I'm a stubborn young guy that I'm bound and determined to buy the car that I came to see. Even though a 2023 is, or I'm sorry, a 2003 is obviously a year newer, it didn't have any miles on it. It had, all the same stuff for $500 more. It seems really ridiculous. Well, I think I left out an important part. I think when I talked to them, I feel like they were asking less money. I think they were asking something like 11.5 or something like that. And I get there, and now all of a sudden the car's 13,000, and that's where the bait and switch sort of occurred. They, lured me over and basically said, "Oh, well, maybe the car that you were looking at sold, and so here's, the same car, similar mileage, probably the freaking same car, but this one's 12.9 or 12.950 or 13,000 essentially." So again, my wife, who's not yet my wife, but is my wife, telling me, "Josh, there's a car outside that's new, no miles, $500 more, like that's probably the route we need to go." Well, I'm already like in negotiations with the sales team, and they're trying to, financing and all this stuff. And I write them $1,000 or $1,500 check, and that's my deposit, my down payment. And then I finance the balance, which they approved it all there. I left having insurance on the car. I had to call and talk to Progressive Insurance, which was my insurance company at the time. And, they sent me a temporary permit through the email. What else? I had to get a trip permit, all the licensing documentation and all that stuff was priced into, and whatever. So I'm all excited. I bought this car. I did buy the Thunder Gray car. That was $13,000, and I paid $13,000. Well, the whole drive home, 2.5 hours, I think my wife and I were on the phone with each other. And I'm saying, "Oh, this is cool, whatever." I'm telling her about the car as I'm driving and experiencing it. But we start to talk about the numbers. And she's like, "I don't understand why you didn't go look at that 2003 car that was only a couple $100 more. I mean, it was brand new. What? And I'm like, come to think of it, I don't really know why I didn't do that." And then we start talking about the fact that, man, I spent a lot more money than I intended to driving over there. That's kind of annoying and kind of not cool. And maybe they did bait and switch me. So after this couple hour car drive, I get home, talk to my dad about this. I'm like, "Dad, here's the situation. What do you think I should do?" And I tell him this whole story. And he goes, "You could go down to your bank." You wrote him a check for that down payment. "You could go down to the bank, and actually prior to that, I call the dealership and I'm like, 'Hey guys, listen, I think you screwed me. I think I overpaid for this car. My wife's telling me you guys had brand new cars that were only a few $100 more. You never once thought to show me those. Also, I went over there with the intentions of paying $11,000 and I left paying $13,000. I'm kind of not feeling good about this whole situation. So maybe what I'd like to do is undo this and maybe return the car." Now, Oregon laws have changed back and forth several times in the last 20-ish years, right? But one thing's for certain, you have 30 days to return a car if you purchase it from a dealership. They have a 30-day return policy. There's lemon laws, there's other things. Now, there wasn't anything fundamentally broken with this car other than my freaking pride, right? I overpaid for something. They didn't sell me what was advertised. They took advantage of a young guy that they saw, sucker written right here. And they weren't going to do anything about it. "Oh, we can't take that car back. We can't. Sorry, all sales are final." And used cars, it was a used car, right? So maybe they had something there. But basically, I caused a stink over the phone, and I wanted to talk to the sales manager, I wanted to talk to the finance guy, I wanted to talk to the manager of the dealership. None of those things really ever happened. I mostly just got dodged and passed around between just the random sales associates who, "Oh yeah, I could probably help you answer your questions," and yeah, that didn't happen. So that's when my dad actually steps in and he calls and he says, "Hey, I think you took advantage of my son. Here's exactly the story." And he told the same story, probably to the same guy. And I'm not sure how threatening my dad was, but basically my dad got off the phone and called me back and said, "Josh, go ahead and go down to your bank and stop payment on that deposit check." Worst case scenario, the check bounces, they call you and they want the car back. Now again, young guy, I couldn't care less about my credit at this point. It was fairly non-existent because I had a credit card in college, but I didn't, have a lot of debt. Obviously wasn't a homeowner yet. I didn't have a lot of extensive credit history. So I didn't have a huge credit report to rely on. And yes, I didn't want my credit to tank, but at the same time, it's probably easier to rebuild when those types of things happen, when there's less stuff on your credit report. So anyway, called the bank, stopped payment on the check. I then called the dealership and told them what I had done. Hey guys, this is your chance. I'm gonna return the car. If otherwise I'm gonna, I stopped payment on the check. They didn't ever bat an eye. They never came back for it. They never asked me to return the car. They just sort of wrote off the balance. I think someone was like, it's not worth the legal battle that this is potentially gonna cause. So I did end up getting the car for like $11,500 because it was $1,000 or $1,500 deposit down payment that I wrote that check for. I wanna say it was $1,500. But anyway, I stopped payment on the check and that was the end of that. So it kind of sucked. It was a real crazy learning experience. And I'm probably forgetting details because again, this was over 20 years ago. But it was just something that kind of stuck with me moving forward. Every time I go to a dealership, I'm on high alert. I know that they're really trying to sell the most expensive car to me that they can. And if they can move used inventory at new car pricing, if they can not warranty a car and sell it as is instead of include one that has a warranty, all these things are going to try to upsell me. They're going to try to do all these things. And that's just how a dealership makes money. They don't make a lot of money selling a brand new car at MSRP, right? They make money on used cars and then add-ons, extras, upgrades, and those kind of things, extended warranties and all that stuff. So the long and short of it is just learn from my mistakes. Make sure that you do not fall victim to a bait and switch. It was a crazy learning experience. I really think that it did. It sort of modified my way of viewing auto dealerships from a fairly young age, but early in my car life. I've always been a little more skeptical when it comes to buying from a dealer as opposed to a individual. But I do think that there's something to be said for the peace of mind generally buying from a dealership brings, because they're going to try to upsell you, but they're also going to service a warranty. It's important to have a good relationship with somebody at a dealership because you want to be able to have access to a service department that's going to work on your car, potentially whatever it is, right? Whatever comes up. Whereas if you buy a car individually from, Steve down the street, well then you're kind of at the mercy of whatever Steve did to the car and whatever your mechanic knows, which may not be much or it might be everything about that particular car. So yeah, anyway, I think there's value in dealing with a dealership when it comes to that kind of stuff, but I'm always skeptical, always skeptical. It's not the first and only time, well, it was the first, but it wasn't the only time we had run-ins with a dealership where we felt like they were trying to take advantage. And, I think that at the end of the day, they're trying to turn a profit and they might not be the most ethical ways to go about it. I don't think they're intentionally, I bite my tongue. I was gonna say, I don't think they're intentionally out there trying to hose people, but they're certainly not in it for the charity side of it. They need to make money. And so they're gonna try to charge you as much as they can and give you as little as they can because that gap is their profit. So anyway, learn from my mistakes. It did end up being okay or somewhat okay in the end. I will do a follow-up video to this one to talk about that car. Again, it's a 2002 Mitsubishi Lancer. And I have searched high and low for photos of that car. I cannot find any. And I'll do a whole nother video in the future about that car and kind of what I was doing with and to it. Might be kind of fun for you guys. And it's fun to kind of walk down memory lane. I haven't really thought about that car in a long, long time. I've had nearly 40 cars since then. So it's definitely something I haven't really thought about in a while. But that's all I got for you guys this week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment down below, hit that notification bell, and most importantly, remember, may every investment you make be a good one. Till next time.